What up, guys? What up? What up? I am Lou, guys, and today we're going to be talking about this tool called Selenium IDE. So it is a plugin for Chrome that we're going to add, and ultimately it allows you to record all of the interactions in the browser, right? As you click on a specific link, as you click on a drop down, click on action, all that stuff, right? So it will kind of record that information. Um, so I'm gonna kind of give you an introduction of this. We're gonna kind of walk through an example. I'm gonna show you some of the things that you could do with it, and then ultimately I'll be making more videos, kind of going more detail, where we're gonna take this code, convert it to Python code, and then ultimately have a Python script that could execute and kind of do the same thing we're trying to do. But before we get started, guys, if you hit the like button, give me a follow, man. I appreciate it. Go ahead and hit the like button. All right, guys, let's get started. So this is the tool, Selenium IDE. And just before we start using the tool, those of you who are new, here's their website. And of course, here's the Chrome or the Firefox downloads, pretty much the extensions that you could add. So I already have it installed. So if I go to Chrome, you could go to their web store, Selenium IDE, and again, I already have it added on my side. But if you go to your extension, I got a few. Where is it? There it goes, right here. And once you click on it, this is the UI that opens up for it, and it's actually very easy to use. But I want to kind of go over a few things as well, right? Want to kind of go over, well, what is this tool? Those of you who may be wondering, so probably need to go to their website. So ultimately, what Selenium is IDE, it's think of it of a recorder to record all of your steps in the web. That's what it is. So good example, as you're going, for example, let's say if I'm in their website and I'm scrolling down, and then I'm going to click on this link, right? Maybe blog, and then I click on read more. Like all these actions that I'm doing were taking me from one step to another. Recent post, whatever, right? Maybe let's say I get to a section where there's a form, then I enter in data in the form, then I hit submit. So all of those steps that I'm doing, Selenium is recording each step one by one. And because again, when you're dealing with web apps, you're dealing with HTML elements. So each element has some kind of action, right? Whether it be some sort of link that you're going to another page, whether it be some kind of action, right? Like a button press. All of those steps are being recorded, and then we could replay that and it'll do the exact same steps, right? So that's kind of the way, what's that used for. So a good use case would be if you're doing a lot of unit testing, let's say data entry on some sort of application. There's features being added, things like that, or some logic being added in the back end, so you want to kind of record all of that. Instead of you having to type in the data every time to test these scenarios, you could have a test file that you would create, run it, and it would actually enter in whatever data you specify, right? You could have a default data set, like, okay, I have a form, I'm going to enter in, first name, last name, address, whatever, right? All the information, then have it hit submit. And then, of course, you'll get back your results, whether if it's successful, whether there's an error, whatever it is, right? But instead of you having to type that in over and over again, you automate that process, at least from a UI standpoint. Now, you could take a step further, then have scripts running, and then log all that activity. And that's kind of where, I'm going to make some videos later on where we're going to take these steps, pretty much convert them into a Python file, and I'll show you how to do that, and then we'll do some tweaks and modify it a little bit, and to kind of give it our own little touch, and then from there we could do all kinds of other stuff, right? Log if it's successful, or maybe you're applying filters to a specific report. So we're going to have some logic where the filter maybe it's coming from some sort of database, or we pull back a list of I don't know, customers, and we're filtering by each customer one by one type deal. Again, we'll kind of go to some examples, but I'll be making more videos going more detail into this. I want to kind of give you an introduction of it. Also, there is a command interface, a command line runner. Now this is cool. What I don't like too much though, you do have to, like, I have this set up, but not everybody may have it set up, which is what I don't like. So if we take a look at what is required, you need, where is it at? Let's say, there goes this guy. So some of the stuff that's required, node, npm, and then of course we need to install the Selenium side runner package. Again, unless you're used to working with JavaScript or Node, you may not have this installed, so you've got to get it installed or whatever. I was kind of hoping more of a exe file, kind of like the way, you know, AWS command line interface and some of the other applications. But either way, what's cool about this is you could just now configure it on your, without having to write code. You could go ahead and get this installed, the command line runner, and then literally call it to the command. And then, which means you can have some kind of schedule set up. You know, let's say if you're working on Windows, you could use a task scheduler, and then ultimately you would just specify your command, right? And it would just schedule it to run once a day, whatever it is, as long as your computer is on, or if you have this set up on a server, as long as that's, you know, the server's running, it'll run on schedule, right? It'll kind of do what you want to do, which is cool because you're not, that in my mind is an easier way to do it without really having to write code to do what you want to do. But at the same time, it's like, all right, if you got to install Node and npm and all the other stuff, most of the people that know how to do that know how to write code as well. So it's, I don't know, man, it would have been easier just to have a exe file, and even for like non-technical people, it would have been way more easier for them to get started. So, but now let's kind of get down on what I want to do. So one of the things that I'm going to do, let's look at this Power BI report. So I have this report. Right, so I got this report, nothing special, just regular BI report. And what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to open up this report. Like, I have it open right now, but you know, the way we want to automate it would be, all right, the report's is not open, so we want to be able to direct it to the URL, which is step one. Then we want to be able to go to this export drop down, and then we want to be able to click on PDF, and then we want it to download the report. Like that, those are the steps that we're looking for. Nothing special, very straightforward. And the reason why I'm showing this example is I got a request on one of my videos of my Power BI refresher video, and one of the things that he asked was like, okay, that's cool that we could refresh it, but is there a way to be able to export it out to PDF so I could email it out to, let's say, a team without having to pay for any of Microsoft Pro services or any of that stuff? And the workaround in this case would be, you can't really do that through Power BI desktop, but the workaround would be, okay, you publish your Power BI file to your Power BI portal, even the free version, and this will work on the free version as well. Publish it to the Power BI portal, and then from there you could have a script, a Selenium script that would do what I'm about to do, to interact with the interface, right? Interact by going to the URL, like going to the report, and then interacting with the drop downs, and ultimately generating, clicking on the PDF to export it out. If we're dealing with filters, which I do have some filters over here, but we're just not utilizing these right now, right? We do have some here. Their logic where we could build to be able to apply, like check a box, right? Check a filter. We're not going to do that in this one, but you can. Just want to put that out there. Those are options that you can do. So let's go ahead and do that. So for now, what I need to do, I need to copy this URL, And then I'm going to actually close this. Right, so let's close it. I guess I didn't have to. It's going to open up a new window anyways. And I'm going to come to my project. So I created this project called test, which is fine. Then inside here, we're going to create new test cases, right? So I'm going to call this Power BI Power BI PDF export, right? That's going to be my test case here. Cool, gave it a name. So see, just kind of get familiar with it. We have in the right corner, we have record, start recording, pause, and then not sure what this is, but really the only thing we need to do is start recording. Then of course we stop once we finish. So let's go ahead and do that. Hit start recording. I'm going to enter in my URL because that's where I want it to go. Right, so that's step number 1. Next, I'm going to want to go to the export drop down, then click on PDF. See how we get this window that pops up? Then I'm going to hit export. Now we could see in the background, it's recording all of our steps, all of our movements. Mouse is moving from here to here, the clicks, mouse moves, clicks, all of that. So see how the first step is open, right? We open up, pretty much we go to the URL, and then we do a Windows resize. All that matters, right? Because you got to keep in mind, you know, it does matter the size of the window, especially when dealing with a web app, because if it's like mobile size, it's gonna, you know, some divs will get removed and readjusted for the purpose of mobile friendly. So just kind of keep that in mind. All of that matters. So right now it's exporting the PDF, and of course I have my browser to automatically download it, you know, so it's doing a download automatically to my download folder. And so we'll wait till that finishes downloading, and then I'll hit stop. There it goes. Boom, it's done downloading. I'm gonna hit stop. So now we're done. So again, this one of the requests that I got, this is not for that necessarily, but I'm trying to just give an example of that case, where if you're trying to generate PDF documents of a Power BI report, but without wanting to pay for any of the premium licenses and all of that kind of stuff, you could use the free version. If you have a Microsoft account, you could just make sure that your Power BI file gets published to your own Power BI, your workspace, pretty much under your name, and then you'll be able to access it to the browser. Now, again, when you're dealing with the free version, you can only view it only, you cannot share it, but we could automate what we did for the purpose of generating a PDF. And of course, I'll kind of show you that real quick. If I click on it, it looks good. Now there are other tabs, so there's other stuff here. I'm not going to go through all the other tabs, but nevertheless, you know, it pretty much prints out everything, right? And every tab that we have, every page, right, that we have gets printed out in its own sheet, and it looks good. It looks good, right? So again, for that guy that had the request, for that viewer, this will probably be the workaround, you know, to do it, where you would refresh it on whatever server or your local machine, the Power BI file. Make sure that that file gets published out to your workspace, and then of course from there you could have, we could write a script, you know, to be able to automate it, which is to do exactly what I did. So now, kind of coming back to this, if we take a look at it, we have all the steps, right? We open, resize, mouse over, you know, this and over this, click on this icon, which is, again, so there are different targets you can specify. So for me, I have played around with this before. Sometimes using the CSS doesn't always work. It just depends. What's more reliable, I think, would be, you know, the XPath method instead of the CSS finder. It may work if I run it right now. I mean, we could test it out to see if it's going to work or not. So let me just click test, right? We want to run it. If I click test, boom, it's preparing my test, and then it should start running. I don't see nothing happening. There it goes. Cool, there it goes, exporting out. Okay, so everything worked fine. As we could tell, everything worked fine. And yeah, it's doing its job. So even with this script, like for something that if we wanted to like have this schedule, right, where we just, again, if you're using Windows, use something like Task Scheduler. We could add it on there, have it run maybe once a day to be able to generate the PDF. This, we could do that, but you do have to go through those steps that I mentioned before, where you have to make sure Node is installed, npm, and then install the one of the packages, a Selenium package that is needed for command runner. Once you do all of that, then you'll be able to go ahead and utilize in the command line to call pretty much that package and then specify this file. So we look at this file here, we're able to my bad, not that file. If we look at if I were to go to save, see how it saved it as a test slide.slide file. So that the .slide file is pretty much it's run. So I think I have one already. Let's open one up. This test slide file. So if I were to open this up in Sublime, all it is a JSON file. It's a configuration, right? That's all it is. So if we were to want to share this with other people, right, your colleagues, like, hey, here's my Selenium test script. Literally it's a JSON file that has all the steps and everything. They could just load it up and then run it, and then they could do it on their side. But again, this is what I'm speaking about, is more from an automation. If you're trying to automate it, that would be your option, right? Option one would be install Node, and we kind of go back to some of the steps that we saw earlier, right? Node version 8 or 10. So I guess it's very specific, 8 or 10. npm, doesn't matter which. Selenium side runner, this has to get installed. So you just follow the steps, get that installed, and then so there's something called browser drivers, and ultimately what that means is when you're going to run it through the script, it needs to know which browser you're using, like Chrome. But you don't just specify the browser, because it is you need a browser driver to be able to communicate with the browser. Pretty much, it's what it is. And so I don't know if this goes into detail. I guess it does, right? You could install the Chrome driver and so on. You could go and download it, right? If I go to the Chrome driver website, there it goes. We could download different versions of Chrome drivers. So also you got to keep in mind, if your browser being updated to the most recent version, you will need to make sure to replace your Chrome drivers with the latest versions as well. It doesn't have to be Chrome either, like Edge, Firefox, right? So some of your popular browsers are available. So, and then this is the way you were running, right? Call the command line, kind of call that slide file, the one which is pretty much this configuration. So that's if you want to do it that way. Now, let's say you're like me. You're like, well, you know what? I want to have it in my language, Python. And I want to be able to maybe do some tweaks. So maybe I'm doing some filtering and things of that nature that I want to apply to, let's say, the Power BI report first. And then I want to be able to export it to PDF. And maybe I'm doing an iteration where I'm exporting mini files out over and over again. Something like that, perhaps, right? So I want to have more control. So one option would be, as we, if I go to my test case that I created, and again, you create mini test cases. You could have a suite, a list of all different kind of test cases. I could go to export. So this would be where you could export it in whatever language, right? And again, Python happens to be one of the options. So I have already exported this out. And let me open it up so I could show you, which is this guy. This is one of the ones that I tested earlier. Pretty much doing exactly what I did here. Now, one of the things I did do, so as you could tell, it creates a class. This class is going to be the name of whatever you call it. Call your test case, right? In my case, call it Power BI PDF export. I would assume that's how it's going to come out. It'll be Power BI PDF export will be the name of my class. And then because I did it in Chrome, it's specifying web Chrome drivers, but you could change it to Firefox, etc. Now it does take an argument, and in the argument, or I believe in the you could specify in the drivers, but you got to specify the path of that file. So kind of going back to where Chrome drivers, you would have to download the latest Chrome drivers, right? So I don't know, let me find so it has for the M1, so it would be the Win32 for Windows anyways, right? Depends on what you're using, so just kind of keep that in mind. If you're using Linux, it'd be Linux, Mac, etc. And then ultimately, it's just an executable file, right? We could take a look at it real quick. So that's all it is, .exe file. So this file, place it somewhere in your project or leave it where that, it doesn't matter. But wherever that, we're gonna have to specify the path and then specify the file. And then ultimately, that's how when it runs, it knows to call, like how to be able to communicate. This driver .exe file that we have is going to allow us to communicate with the browser. It's pretty much what it's doing. So that would be our setup method. Then we look down here under our test one, which again, this would probably be called if I were to export it the same as Power BI PDF. So this is where you kind of make your tweaks and call it something else, right? I don't know, maybe you call it execute or something. And then you could tell we have our Git. We call it a Git request, which is a URL, which would again is going to open up the window, because that's what it would do. It would resize the window, but you could change it if you like here. And then you're going to start calling certain elements, right? Then we're going to have some actions. There's some stuff that we had that we probably don't need. Just like the way over here we have mouse over, mouse out. We really don't need that. And that's kind of where we would have to walk through and kind of clean it up a little bit. Like, all right, what do we need? What do we not need? All I need in my case would be more so the, for example, like these scenarios where it's clicking something, right? So this is something that I would need. This would be the export menu button, which again is the drop down piece here. That's what that is. And then of course it does a click, which is what I want. All this other stuff that it's doing, honestly, a lot of this could get cleared out. We don't even need, but like this we will need. And then there will be other stuff like that, like down here, right? Then we will do another click. And then we will do a final click, and this final click would be for the dialog. There you go. See, that opens up. That tells us to be able to export out the PDF file. So at the end of the day, there's only really a few actions we will keep, and some of the other ones we would actually just remove. Now, because this is Python, there's stuff that we would have to add, like let's say sleep, because maybe we don't want to be too fast. Because if it's too fast, sometimes if the page doesn't, like the dialog box doesn't pop up fast enough but the script is running faster than what we need it to be, it's going to miss it. So that's kind of where we would add some sleep, delays to maybe, delay it by 2 seconds here after it clicks, 2 seconds here, 2 seconds here, boom, that's it. And then ultimately this would download, right? It's going to download the file. And then again, this is where we could like tweak the script, because as we know, as it downloads it and we take a look at how it looks, this is how the file looks: carrier, volume, report. Then we could again add Python logic in our Python script to go look in the download folder, find that file. We could rename it if we want to rename it by maybe adding year, date, month or something, and then we could do something with it. We could email it out to everybody. We could do whatever, right? Or just put it in some kind of folder, and then or something, right? There's things that could be done, But nevertheless, though, this is just a real good introduction of using Selenium IDE to kind of interact with your browser to automate those steps. Also, how to be able to export these steps out to Python code, but just keep in mind though, there's a lot of junk in here too that is not needed. So we would end up most likely removing it, like in my case. And then again, once you put in Python, again, if you're familiar with Python, you could do all kinds of other stuff with it, right? In some cases, maybe you don't need Python. You could just again, get the code line runner set up. And you can just literally do this, man. Call that file, which is pretty much this, the JSON configuration, and it'll do the exact same thing. It'll, run whatever action you're doing. In my case, I'm downloading a file. Maybe in your case, you're not downloading. You're doing something else, right? You're doing data entry, and you're submitting a form, and then you could do that, right? So there's so much that can be done. And I am going to be making more videos in different scenarios on how to do certain things. So just kind of be aware of that. But nevertheless, just wanted to give you a quick introduction. So hopefully this kind of gives you some insight. Those of you who are new, maybe you heard of something like this, but just wasn't aware. Selenium been out for a while, dude. I have used Selenium like years back, and I have used it in a few different projects. And I have, done stuff with it where in Python, where pretty much I interacted with Power BI reports. I applied filters to the reports. I generated PDF file, and then I end up moving it to specific folders, and then I applied a different filter, generated a different, a new PDF file, dropped it in a whole different folder. And then when everything was all said and done, I had, a list of a lot of folders that had files in it. And then I end up running a process to go to grab each file and send out attachments to many different recipients. That's just an example how I have used it, for example. But so I'm going to kind of walk through the process and show you different scenarios of how to use it. But hopefully this helps you out, give you some insight, maybe gets your mind thinking a little bit like, damn, I could use it for my unit testing, or I could use it for X, Y, and Z, right? So that's the whole purpose of the video. Hopefully this helps out, guys. And again, hit that like button, give me a follow. Peace.